Up, y'all? Today we're going to go over what Luke Radowski said about the Timcast episode where Kanye West left the episode. So I saw the clip of Kanye walking out, and from what I've seen, I'd imagine Kanye doesn't have any time for debating whether or not he's right or wrong with people. Everyone and their mother and the paparazzi and anyone he seems to interview with goes after him about what he's saying. So clearly I think he was thinking Timcast might be some sort of a, neutral, place where he's not going to get belittled. And I think Tim belittled him as a virtue signal to try and do whatever his viewers want him to do. And it was really funny because I was watching and you can see Luke Radowski squirming, like, dude, shut up, just let him talk. Like telling Tim, like, dude, like, we have Kanye on the show, like, shut the fuck up, And I was surprised because when I worked with Luke, what eventually ended us working together was my reporting on what was going on in Israel. And Luke would get upset at me when I would do that. And we talk about it, and I was just like, look, dude, I don't see how I can be a journalist and leave out the whole Israeli conflict. Luke is Jewish, and he lost a bunch of family members to the Holocaust and the gas chambers and all that stuff. So there's really no getting anywhere with that. He saw anything. Basically, like, I was trying to reason with him, and I'm like, dude, you gotta be able to, you gotta be balanced on this stuff. And he was just like, I don't want to give them any fodder. And, I guess that's understandable, but it was odd. I was surprised to not see kind of Luke in the position Tim was in. And then I saw this and I watched a part of it and just wanted to kind of review it.
Operations that is one of the bigger players in Hollywood.
What do you know about him?
I think there's a bigger conversation.
What do you know
Dave
about
Chappelle
him?
essentially warning on Oprah what he went through seems like exactly what Kanye went through, and this is what Ye went through, and this is why I specifically brought up him being institutionalized, because I think there's a bigger conversation to be had with this Canadian military guy who worked in psychological.
Canadian? Wasn't he Israeli? That's a little odd. I might have to look that up. But so let's watch some more.
Operations that is one of the bigger players in Hollywood.
What do you know about him?
I think there's a bigger conversation to have about that. There's a bigger conversation to have about Balenciaga and all the occult secret stuff that they've been kind of showing, to the point where they have now deleted their Instagram and their Twitter. I think there's a bigger conversation to have about, JP Morgan and Chase and Jeffrey Epstein. So these were the issues that I really wanted to get into, because I thought they were extremely important to highlight.
See, this is what I thought. I was thinking, because Tim Pool, he's the king of his little mainstream news kingdom. And the reason why I left We Are Change when I was working with Luke Radowski was basically it just started going in a direction that I was no longer interested in. I'm a product of the 2012 election, and I don't believe in. I believe that the American electoral process is just a big reality TV show to basically distract us from the fact that we don't have any choice whatsoever. So Luke, was starting to read the news a lot, which Luke got big because of his street videos, confrontation videos, which were pretty exciting back the day when I went in 2012, 2011, when I was a new blood in this whole game. And so Luke, I was always urging Luke to do more of that kind of stuff, right? And so he wanted to read the news more. And I'm like, bro, this is all bullshit. Like you going out and reporting on Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton every day is not journalism, in my opinion, like, and reporting on them as if they are actual, like, important people in this whole story, and not just pawns being used to, make excuses for the elites. So that was always my problem with Luke. Luke has a problem me reporting on Israeli conflict stuff. I had a problem of, Luke reporting on mainstream news stuff. And that's when I stopped working for him. So it was strange of me to see Luke defending Kanye West, because of who Luke is and his background and how he's dealt with his news outlet, never really reporting on anything having to do with Israel. So then it hit me, Tim Pool's got everything. He's good. Tim's good. He's got a kingdom now, and Luke doesn't have that yet. So Luke, by having this cool libertarian conspiracy theorist conversation with Kanye, would be, Luke coming to help Kanye when the world is against him. And I think that Luke saw that as an opportunity to, further his career by giving Kanye, like a shoulder to cry on. And it was funny because it was like right when I saw Luke kind of squirming when Kanye was walking out, he was telling Tim, he's like, dude, just let him fucking talk or something like that. I was like, what is Luke up to? Because that would normally not be a person he would, or a situation that he would defend. And when I worked for We Are Change, there was so many, there were lots of Israeli trolls and Israeli bots on his page. It was shocking to see. There would be bots that would comment on things, and you would start, after years of looking at this website and this Facebook page, I would start seeing patterns of like statements being made by certain bots or by certain people over and over and over again, all matching the same statements as other people, all, in huge support for Israel. So it's, and I remember talking to Luke about it, and he liked that part about, he liked that there were lots of people defending Judaism, I guess he thought, or something. But I didn't see that as what was happening. So it's really interesting.
Like the larger parallels of what he's warning about to how other people have been affected.
It's funny, but I get it what Luke's doing here, because if it was Lucecast and Tim wasn't around, I think Luke would try and hand Kanye's ass to him in some way, just like everyone else who gets around the guy, it seems like.
Affected by it. And when I brought up the meds before, specifically, I think
it's cool. I mean, Luke's bringing up some really good points. I don't know if that dude was Canadian. I thought he was Israeli, but the handlers in Hollywood, like I'm a major label recording artist, and I've been through all of that. and I can't not agree with what Kanye's having to say. And growing up, I mean, before I was in the music industry, during the music industry, we always knew that Jews kind of, like we're going to be dealing with a bunch of Jews. That was like, kind of a funny joke before. And then it was like, oh yeah, look at, all these guys, Jimmy Iovine and Jeffrey Light and like all these dudes that are our team, and they really they they all robbed us, really. Like they never, like I think the first time I noticed was when I called our business manager, and he's got a big firm in Hollywood, represents all these huge people, rock stars, musicians, movie stars, stuff like that. And like they missed paying my insurance, and my insurance lapsed on my car. And so I called them and I was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I thought this was like, like the whole point of paying a business manager is so they pay these bills and these things don't happen." And the dude was just like, "I'm not paying for that." He's all, like I pled my case to the guy, and he was just like, "Nope, not paying for it. Sorry." And it was a lot of that, a lot of being led into really terrible contracts. Just we got $500,000, and by the time we got any of it, we got like 30 grand a piece, and like all these people took our money basically. And it was wild. And it was very real. And whether or not, like people, the arguments I've seen are okay. Well, like Lex Friedman is like, these were individuals you came across. It wasn't like a Jewish conspiracy. Which is just, how do I explain? Okay. I'm gonna explain it this way. Look, in the 60s, right? The hippie movement was started by the CIA. They basically got a bunch of children from families in the military and got them bands and like made them play music together and start bands. The Doors, the Yardbirds, the Beach Boys, all these bands, Beatles even to a certain extent. All these bands were then labeled hippies. You can look up the Laurel Canyon conspiracy, Haight-Ashbury. These places were CIA breeding grounds. Basically, what they needed was, in order to keep the war machine going and keep money being pumped into the Cold War and all the hot wars and whatever, they needed to vilify anyone who would be anti-war. So where before the 50s, conservatives were very anti-war because they were fiscally conservative, and they realized that spending money to go drop bombs on people in other countries doesn't, necessarily like make that much sense fiscally, financially, especially when you don't have money and you're borrowing money from central banks. So they needed to make basically they invented the stereotype, like who the hippies, like hippies are the only people that are anti-war, dirty, stinky, lazy hippies. Like what do hippies know either? And they in mission accomplished, to this day, they continue to keep that stereotype going of, the only people being anti-war are stinky hippies. And they're literally a genre of music was started because of this, all but from CIA plants, all family members. Jim Morrison, look up his dad. Jim Morrison's dad literally did the Bay of Pigs or something like that. Some crazy conspiracy. I'm not conspiracy, a false flag. I believe it was Bay of Pigs. It was like or no. Jim Morrison's dad was the guy who said he got shelled by either the Germans or the Tuskegee. It's anyway. Look it up. Look up Jim Morrison's dad. Look up Jim Morrison. Look up the Laurel Canyon conspiracies, and you'll see how much, like, if people are like, oh, why would the Jews need to control the music industry? And it's like, when you know how much you can control the masses with music, and you understand that they do this and they have been doing this, and the whole hippie genre was invented, to propagandize millions of people, and it's like, if only dirty, stinky hippies are the ones that are outspoken against the war, why would any conservatives want to join ranks with dirty, stinky hippies and be against the war? They basically peer pressured people into being pro-war by using music. So if you don't understand why these people would want to control the media, music, movies, these people, they exist. Like, and it's not a coincidence, and it's not BS that these people exist. And if you know how they need to control the media in order to keep the war machine going and the propaganda flowing, that these things aren't very shocking when you hear Kanye saying stuff like this. This was common knowledge. Like, yes, it was a funny stereotype that lots of people would make jokes about, but like, who was it? Malcolm X. I'm going to paraphrase him when I say this, but he was like, how is it possible that this is the only group of people that when you point out their role in society, you get called an anti-Semite and you get shit on, and it's true. Any other, it's the only the only thing you could point out, like that type of thing, and it be like a big deal. And like, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm very pro-Semite. And so what's going on? Am I lying when I'm saying that? Because I believe that because I saw it with my own eyes. That for some reason, Jewish people really have saturated certain forms of media, and then you look into government and all the corporations, and it's all like Israeli dual citizens, and it's wild because I've heard a lot of people recently be like, oh, how could they run these industries when they're only a small fraction of the percentage of the population of the world? And it's like, yes, that's a very good question. There must be some motive and some agenda or some sort of reason why, they're just Jewish people just nomadically want, jobs in the music industry. Like, it's got to be something more than just that, because it's a very real thing, and it's been this way for a very long time. I got a buddy, Jeff Jample. Look at his website, werepresentlegends.com. The dude owns the rights to almost every dead musician that's ever existed. And man, we go out on his boat and he tells me all the stories. He'll admit it all day, like, candidly. It's only when these people that don't know, get involved, and they have this emotional reaction to hearing something. Like, I saw a tidbit of TMZ, and the guy on TMZ's just like, Kanye's a bigot. He's a bigot. He's a bigot. Like, freaking out. And it's like, dude, how, I just go back to that Malcolm X quote. Like, how is it possible that he's a bigot? Because he's pointing out the fact that, probably 5 out of 7 of the closest people to him, in the music industry were Jewish, and they were trying to drug him, just like Luke is saying about Dave Chappelle. He literally fled the country when he had the most popular TV show in the world because they were trying to put him in an insane asylum and medicate him with crazy big pharma stuff. And if you go into, I've known a lot of celebrities, and I've watched a lot of the stuff, there are handlers, and these handlers are usually like hired by the labels, record labels, and these are like dangerous people. There's a reason why they hire people from the military, because they want these psychopathic narcissists to be controlling this human in such a cruel way that they have to hire psychos. So, you know, these people that think that they know more than me or Kanye, who've been through this industry, these people think that they know, and they vilify what the dude's saying. And, you know, like I saw him on Lex Friedman, and I gotta commend the guy. It was great. I wouldn't trust Lex Friedman more than I can throw him. Especially with the position and how quickly he got in that position. Like, always have to wonder. But then, the Lex Friedman, and then just like how Lex Friedman was like, he's like talking to him all like he's like, oh, I'm a hip hop guy. Like he was like, oh, like just so fake and gross and cringy, dude. Like stop with everyone calling him Ye. Like Christ. He's not your friend. You didn't grow up with him. You weren't even a fan of him until he started saying this stuff. So it's all pretty funny. But I don't know. It's just very strange to see Luke.
Because when you look at...
Of all people, Luke Radowski. But I know Luke really likes using all the libertarian rhetoric on Timcast because it makes him sound and look very cool, because libertarian rhetoric sounds cool, you know. And like I commend Luke for when Joe Rogan was on the show. Luke corrected Joe on what anarchy was, and he had some of the smartest stuff to say, and he clearly did today or yesterday, but he wasn't able to. But it is very weird that Luke, who I've never seen, you know, do anything but vehemently defend the Jews, be all of a sudden be the voice of reason here. But I'm pretty sure, you know, like Luke was hoping that the interview happened so Luke could just dump all this stuff on Kanye, and Kanye would be like, oh my God, finally someone understands me, you know, and like then Luke could use that clout to, you know, get bigger, because right now he's Tim Pool's bitch, and you know usually Luke's the head guy, and so I know he doesn't really like being where he is, but he has to, because this is his dream, you know. Like I talked to him about it. He wants to be mainstream, and he is now. I tried to get him, you know, I tried to lead him away from that, but it didn't work.
The text message that he released between himself and Harley Pasternak, who essentially looks like he was the one that institutionalized him because he was at his home. He's the one that was threatening to drug him and to put him in zombie land forever, to the point where playing with his children wasn't going to be the same ever again. Yeah. That was a huge threat made against Ye. Definitely. Right? This is why I
stop fucking calling him Ye.
I think it's important to talk about SSRIs, psychotropics.
This is amazing here, you know. It's just odd that Luke's talking about it now in defense.
All the drugs, especially with the way that they have affected individuals like Jordan Peterson, to think that these drugs that Big Pharma gives out, like they're just...
Jordan Peterson's diet is affecting him greatly too.
Candy doesn't have any long-term mental effects, I think is a conversation that should be had. It shouldn't be a controversial one, since clearly there's a link there.
Why do you think people are afraid to talk about this? Ian, you might have views on this too. Like, why do you think SSRIs, or, you know, they call them mood stabilizing drugs?
No one cares about crazy people.
Drugs or whatever. Like, why do you think people are so afraid to discuss that publicly?
Well, there's a big industry.
We've been trained by the powers that be to not give a shit about people who have mental health problems.
A huge big pharma industry that has their money in their hands and everywhere, that I think is worth criticizing, that I think is worth talking about. And this is why I wanted to bring up the...
Do you feel the same way about, like...
Yeah, Luke's pissed.
Like lithium or antipsychotic drugs as you do about SSRIs?
I think...
There's a far bigger portion of the population.
This girl says a lot with her facial expression. Look at her face change with every word she says.
Psychotic drugs, as you do about SSRIs.
I think
'Cause there's a
It
far bigger
almost tells
portion
me
of the
she's on antipsychotics because when she said it, her face was very soft. And then when she said
lithium or
SSRI, she kind of got
antipsychotic
mad.
drugs, as you do about SSRIs.
I think
'Cause there's a far bigger portion of the population taking SSRIs than antipsychotic medication.
Exactly. I think a lot of the studies, a lot of the findings haven't really been officially kind of delved out. I think each person is unique. Each person is individual, just like their brain chemistry. And once you start tinkering and messing around with people's brain chemistry when they're all different, I think this leaves for a recipe for disaster. So as far as those two particular different kind of substances, I'm not an expert. I'm not a scientist. I'm not here trying to give you guys any kind of medical advice. That's the last
You're
thing
not
I
a
would want to do.
doctor?
I know you would want me to be, but I'm not,
doctor.
Hannah.
I
Calm
just
down there.
believe, Lee, that you could be the world's best doctor.
Yeah, now this girl just changes the subject. So that was interesting. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. But yeah, I went through the whole rock star process, and man, that was pretty much all Jews, like without a doubt. And I'm not anti-Semitic at all. I have Jew friends. I don't have a problem with Judaism at all whatsoever. People can believe in anything they want, but it's a fact that these people are in these industries, and they have saturated the industries, and they control them for their favor and their agenda, whatever that might be. But anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Shadio. Peace.